What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Side Hustle Experiment podcast. Today we have Side Hustle Network, Chaz, with us. Chaz is definitely an OG. I remember going to thrift stores, listening to his content, watching his content at night, listing books. It was just super helpful. He's been through so much. He owns Oregon Prep Center. He's eBay seller, Amazon, liquidation pallets, all this stuff. So it's super awesome to have him here. This is a really 360 moment for me.
Well, I
So thanks for being
appreciate
here.
the invite, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so give us a little bit of background. You were just talking a little bit before that, but when did you
Oh,
start?
man.
Why did you start? I know it's probably a long background.
The last 9 years in a nutshell. So my wife and I started this whole side hustle gig out of our garage for the first 2 years. I was a massage therapist and a personal trainer. She was in the medical field. With my job specifically, anyone who's worked with clientele knows what I'm talking about when I say that our income was very up and down. Because if I didn't have bodies on the table or people in my garage working out, there was no paycheck coming in. So I was looking for different ways of adding additional income. Stumbled into one of these freebie seminars where they talk about different methods to making money, real estate, stocks, etc. One guy got up there and talked about Amazon. Another one talked about eBay. When I first heard eBay, I'm like, photos, listing, I'm good. I don't want to do that. And then somebody got up there talking about Amazon, said you can actually ship all your products to them. No photos, no listing in the eBay sense. And I was very intrigued by that. So I went to the seminar, learned the ins and outs. And that's a whole different thing that ended up being one of those shark $40,000 buy into our PL type things, which I didn't know any better at the time. Not once did they talk about how to do a shipment, retail arbitrage. No, none of that was even mentioned. So when I got home, started looking on YouTube how to get into the Amazon FBA gig. There was a few channels. Rakin's one of the OGs. He was one of the first channels that popped up, talking about reselling with eBay. Used books was popping up in the Amazon world at the time. But aside from that, there were no real channels around. People like Reezy and myself started our channels at the same time because of that demand. There was nobody talking about this stuff. So people like us popped in there, started our accounts, started flipping stuff on Amazon, and documented our journey on YouTube along the way. That we did that for the first 2 years out of our garage, ended up quitting our full-time jobs. Not that we didn't love what we did, we just got sick and tired of capping out our time for money. As a massage therapist, I can work on about 35, 36 clients a week, and I'm capped. Unless I'm jacking up my prices, there's no way for me to make more money in that world. So I got sick and tired of that grind. And so quit our jobs, went full-time with it, Amazon first, and then eventually eBay came into the works. And then recently, of course, Walmart's kind of the big talk of the town. So I'm actually very heavy on the Walmart side over everything else right now. And it's been quite the journey. Throughout that whole journey, we hopped from small 500 square foot office space to 1,000 square foot warehouse. During that time, COVID kicked in. Long story short, Network Prep was born out of necessity. We kept getting questions about prep centers. And at the time, there were zero I could recommend because it was all horror stories out there. They haven't replied back to me in 3 weeks. They're holding on to $10,000 worth of my inventory. Packages going missing every day, and then they show up on the owner's accounts. Very shady stuff. So we decided, all right, let's see if we can make a better product. So we simply created a prep center, Network Prep, which is now what it's called. And we've been at it for almost 4 years. This December will be a 4-year mark since doing the prep center side. If you want an even deeper conversation on that, because it's not just all one linear chart of success here, we moved down personally to Texas. And we kept our Oregon location going, which is where I'm actually right now. I fly up every couple months, help the team out. And we moved down to Texas, put a manager in place, fully staffed this. It's fully operational without us, which is an amazing place to be. We have this great blueprint that's here. The problem is it's a sales tax-free state. So the blueprint we thought we could copy and paste in Texas did not work. So long story short, we tried to make this warehouse in Texas work for 2 years. We took on clients. We were buying and selling our own products again. And that was all to just barely break even. We had about $7,000 overhead, all these things that nobody talks about behind the scenes. And I'm the one that's an open book that's like, let me tell you about my failures. So we ended up shutting that location down just a few months ago. And for the first time in years, my wife and I are now full-time sellers as our main focus again. So it's a kind of a full circle. We got off the original path, went down the rabbit trail of starting prep centers. This one stuck It's pretty successful in my opinion, and it's fully automated with staff, which is a great position to be in as an owner. So now I get to do the fun part, which is let's go buy and sell things on the internet.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm super curious on the prep center stuff. It's probably what we'll talk the majority of the time about, because I feel like when you talk in real life, if you're a seller to somebody else, people always say, why don't you run like the prepping part, or why don't you do this for other people or whatever? And I'm like, I don't think it's that easy. And then I talk to prep center owners. And it's like one of the hardest businesses you can get into. So let's probably knock out some common misconceptions maybe about that, and how your journey's been there.
Yeah. So a lot of people in that world, because we get the same thing from clients that are like, I'm going to send you 5,000 units a month. You only have to worry about putting the label on it. So therefore I want a big discount. And then I have to explain to them, from a normal seller perspective, yes, a prep center just puts labels on things. But what they don't account for, and I didn't have any clue about this until we got into it, which is we have to take care of the receiving of these products. And being an online arbitrage focused prep center, they're not coming neat cases of 12 packs on a pallet that you can turn out 3,000 units in a day, right? That's easy. What's difficult in the online arbitrage world is the fact that if we have 5,000 units coming from a client per month, they're coming in about 20,000 different boxes. So we have the physical receiving from UPS and FedEx, which is about 200 packages a day for us. That has to get sorted onto the client shelves. Then they're pulled down during the client shipping part, which is usually a once a week schedule for most of our clients. We have to unbox. We have to sort the products onto the table by SKU. Then we have to have someone check them in, enter the data onto Inventory Lab, because we do everything start to finish for the client. We don't have, some prep centers do this ping pong back and forth situation, which is like, we got your product, you check it in, you enter the data. When you're done, we'll come back and prep. And it's just way too much back and forth. So our goal was take that off the client's plate. So we do everything from scratch, and then we can check it in and do the label. So there's all that back end that goes into it. The box contents probably takes the longest out of most shipments, as you guys all probably know. So if you can imagine how long it takes you to do 200, 300, 400 units by yourself, we're doing that with 60 to 80 different clients. So there was a lot of logistics, a lot of back end, a lot of making terrible mistakes to figure this all out, because in prep center world, there are no YouTube videos. There's no blueprint. There's no ebook. I would have spent whatever it took to have someone give me a game plan and say, hey, here's the blueprint, run with it. We had to literally create it from scratch.
Jeez. How many people do you have working for you in those prep centers?
So we have right now, we just hired on one. I'm actually training a new one on Monday. So we'll be at about 9. And it's fluctuated over the years. And it's, anyone who's hired physical staff, especially in the last few years, the workforce is very difficult to find good people for some reason. So out of the 9, 10 that we have that are rock solid, they've been with us for years. It's taken about 25 hires, and a lot of them not working out for whatever reason. So we have a pretty rock solid team right now. We just brought on the new one who's going to be an amazing person to add to the team. So very excited with where we're at right now.
That's awesome. What else you got on the prep center side of things, John? I'm sure you got some questions here.
Yeah, I definitely have a couple. So when you go down there, because you go down there like pretty often, like what are you doing down there?
Yeah, so so it's kind of a two-parter thing. The main reasons I fly up here to help the team out is, one, they just have these random boosts out of nowhere in volume, especially with online arbitrage. There might be some crazy good sale going on out of the blue, and the team doesn't have a heads up. It's not like the clients are like, hey, I just ordered 50% more than I normally do. So sometimes especially Monday, because we don't get deliveries over the weekends, Mondays, FedEx sometimes has to bring a freight truck because there's so many individual packages. It's like 3 or 4 pallets worth. And so they literally freight them and then bring them down on the lift gate for us. Even though they're all different client packages, they're palletized at the terminal for us. That's just FedEx. And then we have UPS. So every now and then we get these insane booms where it's like 500 or 600 packages per day getting delivered. And I get the call like, hey, we might need help. And then I'm on a flight, sometimes with the same day notice. And then the second part, even if I didn't need to physically be here to help them out shipping, which is actually this trip, I don't necessarily need to be on the floor helping them ship too much. It's very important for me as an owner that when we moved, we would not just become these distant remote owners that nobody hears from anymore. Even though our manager, Jamie, she handles 95% of all operations, I still take care of kind of the bigger fires or the invoicing. Those are my 2 big roles now, and the marketing. So I fly up here every 8 to 10 weeks for usually about a week at a time, simply if it's just me to physically be here and mingle with the team. It's a pretty important piece for me as an owner and now as a boss to actually be involved with them, because I'm a big believer in you're not building the system and then plugging people into it. That's part of it, but ultimately your job is to focus on building the people, and the people will not just keep the business running, but also build on top of it.
Yeah. You talked about the marketing thing there. I think your marketing angle is that what you said about the not skipping the process, right? Like I didn't even know that prep centers did that. Was like, because I always thought it was a ping pong is a good way to put it, like you said.
Yeah.
Do you make that very well known? Because I feel like
Oh.
that is you're going to get some signups from that just from people listening to this. I would
Yeah.
assume.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's something I talk with every client about when we first get an email. It's like, hey, I'm interested. Cool. Check out our website. I put everything, every possible question. I'm a big believer also in just putting everything transparently up front. Sadly, when you look at a lot of prep center websites, it's contact us for pricing. And it's like, you just lost a lot of people because most of us just want all of it right up front. So I put everything on the website, then they come through us, and I make sure they understand like your only job. My goal is to make your job as a client as simple as possible. That means that the only couple things you have to worry about are make sure your data is on our spreadsheet, which we use Airtable, and then make sure you're just available on the day of your shipment on Slack. Not that you have to sit here and watch the chat, but sometimes, especially with OA, we get damaged products quite often. Sometimes the product does not match the ASIN that was given to us. There might be a secondary ASIN that's a better fit. Different questions can pop up. So all you have to do is make sure the data is given to us on Airtable. Make sure that you're loosely available to answer questions on the day of your shipment via Slack, and then also take care of any type of returns that might happen as well. So sometimes we get these returns, especially damaged products. We send a clean, itemized list at the end of a shipment. Anything that had damage or was restricted, we'll send that list over to the client, and then they can attach shipping labels and give it back to us. And we do all of that at no extra cost.
Wow.
That is awesome.
That's insane.
Try to keep it as simple as possible. We've gone down the rabbit trail of complex. Does not work. There was actually one point where on paper was the best we were ever doing, because if anyone just looked at the piece of paper with the business on it, we had 14 employees. We were clearing 55,000 units per month. We were doing very well. But what you didn't see was the fact that Tristan and I were working 40, 50 hours a week each, just on the prep center, not even our own buying and selling. At that time, our accounts went down to zero because we just had no extra time. And this before we truly scaled out the staff and put an operations manager in place. We were the managers. And so everything ran through us. We were putting a lot of time, a lot of stress, a lot of energy, and we finally hit the brakes. So we actually got rid of some staff. We got rid of some clients. We downsized. And at that time, we just said, let's hit cruise control for like 6 months, like really take a good step back, figure out our systems, look at where the holes are in this boat, and let's see if we can do this properly. Then it was, we need an operations person. We cannot be the filter for everything anymore, especially if we want to ever buy and sell our own products again. We can't be the managers in charge. So we got a manager in place who had been with us since our garage days. She started out as taking photos in our garage a couple days a week for eBay stuff, and then she worked her way up to where she runs this whole Oregon operation now. So put her in charge of the whole place, got everything out of our heads onto a written down checklist form. That's where SOPs first became a thing for us. Really just creating systems is what it came down to, and plugging the right people in to operate those.
And why was it not duplicable in Texas? What was the problem there?
So the main one is our entire audience is online arbitrage, and Texas has 8.25% sales tax. Oh, yeah. So immediately that just like tanked a lot of people's operation if they were trying to ship down there, unless they can find the loopholes with getting reimbursed from your sales tax, which can, take a year sometimes. So a lot of loopholes people just didn't want to jump through, which I completely understand. So for us to be competitive down there and try to offset that extra sales tax, we were charging 70 cents per unit. And at a $7,000 overhead, and like I said earlier, I'm an open book. I can spit out whatever you guys want me to dump on you. But we had $7,000 overhead, and at 70 cents a unit, we had to do 10,000 units a month just to break even. That's before paying ourselves. That was two part-time employees at the time, and that was utilities. All the overhead was $7,000 just to keep it going before we ever talked about making money for ourselves or making profit. So at that point, we ran it for 2 years. We got some wholesale clients in, and that helped offset some stuff a lot because there was a lot more volume coming through. But at some point, we just looked at the whole thing, even though it may have been making money at some point, it no longer fit the lifestyle that we wanted. And that's something I became very, very aware of over these last 6 to 8 months as this whole operation was shut down. It took us 4 months to liquidate that warehouse. It was a lot of stuff. It was a lot of stuff inside of 3,500 square feet. So we ended up liquidating all the client stuff, getting back into just full-time sellers ourselves. We actually got storage units right next door to there. They're 25 foot deep each. They're indoors. They have power. They have lights. They've climate controlled. Can't even make this up. The storage unit actually has daily USPS pickups. So we actually can leave our packages at the front desk and they get picked up every day. $600 a month. So we started looking at that setup because Trista was calling around at these storage units. She's like, hey, I found something for 600. It might be exactly what we need. And we got rid of all the client stuff, just moved our own personal death pile at the time in there. And that's what we've been focused on ever since.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, I imagine that sales tax thing would basically make it impossible. But there is, like, every state has some prep centers and stuff. I see them all over the place.
For sure. Yeah, if I can go back and do it better, because now we know better, it definitely would have been not even trying at the online arbitrage marketing side, which is our entire audience. So I had no access to a wait list that had wholesale or private label sellers, which is what we want to focus on for sales tax states. You want people who are doing larger volume wholesale, which is where 70 cents per unit can make really good money if you're doing wholesale based operation. So you're doing quick, small products that you can turn out thousands per day and not even bat an eye, versus what we were doing, which is a lot more like 300 or 400 units that took all day because it's bubble wrapping and multi-packing and a lot of extra time. So at some point, we just looked at, does this even align with our lifestyle anymore? Which is, we love to travel. I want to be able to go back and forth. Texas sucks in the summer. It literally tries to kill everybody with 110 degrees every day. So we want to escape for the summer. And we did that this last July. We were up here for 5 weeks in Oregon and got to enjoy 90 degrees of beautiful Northwest. So that's a lifestyle we want. And we have 2 small children that we started homeschooling as well. And we just got sick and tired of dragging them to a warehouse every day. That was not a lifestyle I want them to be growing up with. We're in a society today, especially in this business, where go, 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 hustle, hustle, hustle is the mentality. And it's comical because it's like, I'm Side Hustle Network, you have Side Hustle Experiment. Like, we're all about the hustle. But I got sick and tired, and same thing with my wife as well. But we got sick and tired of watching our kids start to absorb those habits, because we'd wake up in the morning, quick, get your stuff together, get your breakfast done. We got to get to the warehouse, and then we're go, go, go all day at the warehouse. And then, okay, get your stuff. We got to get home. We got to go do dinner. And then, okay, quickly get ready for bed. We can sit down for 30 minutes and watch a show, and then boom, it's bedtime. That's not a lifestyle I want them to grow up with. And that's something that we started becoming self-aware about ourselves. And we are very much living that. So we had no problem shutting the whole thing down and really focusing back on what matters most.
How do you go about calculating those trade-offs like that? Like, how do you, because it's not like it's easy to do it. You make it seems easy after the fact, right? But in the moment with these things, how do you go like, this matters more? Should I push through, that type of thing?
Yeah. And I'm a big believer in, everyone talks about like, what's the work-life balance? I've got 2 kids, multiple companies. Like, obviously time management is always a big conversation. I'm about tactics with time management when it comes to like, you got to time block and do all the scheduling stuff. Yes. But ultimately is it costing my peace of mind is the question I started asking. And that's how I view a trade-off now. And when it started weighing on us personally, it put a strain on a relationship, because there's pros and cons to working with your spouse, but we very much were at each other's throats because we were just personally stressed with the whole situation, especially when we're being tied to client demands. So, people are like, hey, I've got 4 pallets showing up. I need those done today. Right. Or like first thing tomorrow. Like we dealt with a lot of clients that were like that, unfortunately. So looking at the trade-offs is really just the question of, is it going to cost my peace of mind? Because if it is, I'm not about it anymore. I've been in this thing for 9 years. I've done my fair share of 12 to 15-hour days in the hustle and grind mentality. You have to go through phases like that, though. Like, we're getting ready to enter Q4. I'm going to be out in way more retail stores doing, because I love RA. That's my bread and butter. I love doing retail arbitrage. So going into the next phase of Q4, I'm going to sacrifice some time with my family because I need to go find these deals. I'm going to do a lot more sacrificing in this phase, as long as I can acknowledge that when that phase needs to be done, it is a clean cut slate, and then I can put focus back on personal time, family time. So I'm a big believer these days in focusing on which phase do you need to be in, not just let's hustle for the next year. I'm a big believer in taking mini breaks, at least, once a month, even if it's a day breakaway, just go out into a different town overnight or something like that. But I've been through my fair share of mental burnouts and breakdowns, so peace of mind is my absolute focus these days.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same kind of phase right now where I'm doing OA still, but I'm also doing influencer program. And influencer program is really starting to take off, and it's starting. I'm like, peace of mind with influencer program, like not having all this inventory tied up, not a lot of capital. I'm just like, and it's like starting to take off. So now I'm like kind of at that phase where it's like, you need to make a decision, like,
for sure,
do you want to blow this up and like keep going, but you leave a lot behind. Like my whole brand is, online arbitrage, have a community tied to that. But so I'm always go back and forth with that. And it's just, it's always hard to make a change. And I was watching your warehouse video, like closing it down. I was like, damn, like I remember that. Like it was like, oh yeah, like you just got to get rid of everything. And that's like the cleaning of it, like all the stuff you
much
had.
work.
It was so brutal, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, I had somebody that message on that video. They're like, hey, how come you didn't just hire movers? I'm like, that's like $4,000.
Yeah.
And so, the wife and I, we had her dad's old truck is this 1987 250, just this old hunk of a beast. And we were taking that thing truckload after truckload over to the storage units. But it took like 4 months between shipping out all the leftover client stuff, moving our personal stuff to the storage units, the final sweep. It's a lot. People don't realize goes into it behind the scenes.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, how is it working with the wife? I feel like all you see is don't get in business with family or don't get in business with your significant other. How is that?
For sure. I don't know. So we're in a unique position where I don't believe that statement at all anymore, because most people don't know this, but Network Prep is a family-run business for the most part. My sister and her husband, full-time, Monday through Friday, health benefits, the 401ks, like all that stuff. They've been with us for a year. My mom and dad, and they're all down there right now. My mom and dad, full-time. We've got Jamie, who was our original OG from the garage days. She worked her way into the manager position here. Her sister's here full-time. So we've got this whole family operation. Tristan and I have obviously, we quit our jobs probably 6 months into the whole journey. So back in 2016, like mid 2016, we quit our jobs. So we've been working together every day since then. So when I hear the word like don't get into business with friends and family, I agree if there's underlying issues or lack of communication already. Then it's a terrible idea, because when you're in business with family, it's only going to amplify the underlying issues that are already going on. And especially, it's like if you already struggle with some slight tension and lack of communication, expectations not being met, and then you go into doing a business where you're going to have added layers of stress, it's just amplifying all the underneath stuff. So Tristan and I have had to go through our fair share of just personal journeys and personal growth to get on a level of trust, communication, understanding of each other that we're at now. The biggest thing that we did to ultimately make it work the best was understanding to delegate each thing out based on our strengths. So I am absolutely terrible at eBay listing. She's amazing at it. I'm great at photos though. So we can come up with a system where I'll handle photos all day long, Dropbox them over to her, and then she's able to do the listing. So we really separated out the roles. So it's not that we're just, playing this game of like, okay, here's what we have to do today. Do you want to do it? Do I want to do it? We play off each other's strengths. And then of course, nothing's ever perfect. We have our fair share of communication breakdown, like any other couple would go through.
Still admirable. I feel like, you always hear the opposite, but I've always thought the same as you. It's like, if you have a good family, you have good people around you, that should be the people you want to go into business with, not some random person you meet, right?
For sure. And we're a living testament to that. I've got half my family downstairs right now. Oh, and Trista's cousin is with us full time. So it's like we've got this whole family operation going on, and I cannot tell you one time there's been an issue as far as the friends and family thing, because we from day one have always had a clear communication and expectations. And we've also always agreed, like, hey, things are not always going to go smooth down here on the floor, right? If you mess up something and I have to call you out for it, just take the advice. Let's work on resolving that. Ultimately, all of it's my fault, because if they messed up on something, that's a systems issue. That's on me, right? So as long as I understand that aspect, take full responsibility over everything that happens under this roof. If somebody puts the wrong label on the wrong item, that's my fault. There is a underlying expectation that was not met because of a systems issue. So having all of these expectations out of the way really cleared a lot of stuff up. When there have been mistakes, and I've had to sit down with my sister, my brother-in-law, my parents, I've had to sit down with them as the boss, like, hey, here's something that either happened or here's something we need to work on improving. It's a business conversation, and then boom, we're done. We move on with our lives.
You try not to take it. I know people say, like, don't take it home, right? Is there anything you have in place there where it's like, this is for here, or does it all kind of blend together, especially with the whole family? Like, I can't imagine.
So when it was the warehouse, it was definitely easier to just leave it at the warehouse, and then when we're home, we're home. But now that we've brought everything back, so we have our 2 storage units, which is where all the listed stuff is, and then we have 1 unit that's just unlisted. But we're doing our processing stuff and our shipments out of our garage. So now it's back in the house. So we're having to rediscover some of these things we figured out early on when we were working out of our garage those first 2 years. We had boundaries in place, which is like, for us, it's a time cutoff. Like after 7 p.m., there's zero reason you would ever drive to the warehouse. So therefore, there's zero reason we should be going to the garage. So we've had to kind of put in those time constraints now, because it's easy when it's in your garage to just be like, oh, I'm just going to go do like 5 photos of some stuff and list them on eBay, or like, oh, I forgot to list that thing on Walmart. Let me go run out there real quick. So we're trying to stay with these time frames a little bit better now.
Smart.
What else you got, John?
So you've been selling on or in the reselling community for like 9 years now. What do you think about the future of Amazon and kind of everything that's gone on from when you first started? Because you were probably one of the first ones to sell on it.
Oh, it was a wild west back then. It's why I'm pushing people to get on Walmart now. Walmart now is kind of how Amazon was back in like 2017-ish. There's some restrictions, not a ton. Pretty easy to get approved for stuff. You have a fraction of the amount of sellers. I think the stat that came out was there's 1 million Amazon sellers and there's 150,000 Walmart sellers. Wow. So I'm trying to get people over there because it's a very, I'm trying to think of the right terminology for this. It's not as crazy as Amazon has gotten. There's no placement fees. There's the shipping. I shipped a 40-pound box for like $28 and that was it. There was nothing else, no fees, no splits, nothing. So Amazon in its current state, especially because we work primarily with Amazon sellers, 60 to 80 clients, somewhere around there. We see firsthand just the sheer amount of splits that have been going on ever since they did that adjustment a few months back. So what used to be 2 or 3 way splits are now 6, 7, sometimes more, as far as splits go. And the placement fees, I think what is happening is it's going to continue getting more and more difficult every year for arbitrage sellers. It's the same conversation we've been having since 2016. Every year there was a new restriction, there was a new something, there was a new fee. There's fees every year going up. They're never going to come out and be like, hey, guess what? We're lowering our fees this year. I doubt that's going to happen. So it's not a shocker that fees are going to keep going up. And there's probably just going to be new policies and new things they come out with to make it a little bit more difficult. But as long as you are just following the basic principle that I have had to learn many times, which is if you get into business, number one thing you can learn to build a skill set around is pivot and adapt. So especially when Amazon comes out and they're like, hey, we now have placement fees and we're going to split your stuff all these different ways. If you want optimized shipping, you have to have, what's the rule they came out with? It's like quantity 5 over 5 different boxes, and then we'll optimize like all this stuff. So unless you're willing to pivot and adapt and play the game, we are playing their game. So they call the shots. You have to follow their rules. We can complain about it all we want. They're not going to listen to us. We can go sign whatever petitions we want. So you have to learn to just adapt to play the game, or you have to diversify, which is why I made a big pivot over to the Walmart side. The far less competition, Really hammering on eBay as well, especially because we have a 25-foot storage unit that's packed of unlisted inventory. I have no actual reason I should be sourcing because it's all in there. So we're learning to diversify a little bit. I do think Amazon is just like it has every year. It's going to get a little bit more difficult year over year.
How long do you think it takes till Walmart gets there?
If they're following the same time frame, it's going to be a couple years until we start seeing bigger things like that happen, if at all. The one thing I've learned with Walmart is they just recently had an event over in San Francisco. It was a free event to go to. You just had to obviously cover your hotel, your flight, but the event itself was free. And I'm expecting to show up. So our big group of ours all went together. We had about 30 of our members that went over there, and I was able to see firsthand not just the power of the Walmart platform, but the fact that they care that much about their sellers. They hosted this giant event. I did not do any research on this thing, and I thought I was walking into just a hotel with a conference room full of vendors, and this thing was at a huge convention center. It was kind of similar to like the ASD vibe, giant floor, tons of vendors, tons of software companies, you had access to all the VPs and all the different categories. And you were able to have one-on-one conversations with these people, and they actually cared enough to put up millions of dollars to host this event. They fed us breakfast and lunch. They took us out to this awesome science museum where they booked the whole place out with like a circus crew that came in, drinks, all of it was comped. Wow. So that showed me that even if Walmart is going to follow what Amazon's been doing, come out with new fees, new splits, different things like that, they have shown so far they actually want to be involved with the seller community and to really listen to us. So that completely put a different point of view for me. It's no longer just, oh, I sell on Walmart. It's no, I'm a Walmart seller and I'm involved with a bigger picture as far as what they're focusing on. So I was very, very happy with that event.
Yeah, we had Cody Does Amazon or Cody Does Walmart on, and it inspired us to sign up for Walmart accounts.
Yep.
Like we literally after we did it, and then like an hour later, like someone calls me from Walmart and they're like, "Hey, like just want to say hi. If you need any help, let me know."
Exactly.
And I was like, "Oh, like if I need any help, like how do I call you?" They're like, "No, we already sent you an email. Just like reply to that email and we'll get you like whatever you need." And I was like, wow, this is kind of crazy.
A little different, huh? You can't even get a hold of anyone at Amazon. If you do, they're like, what do you want?
Pretty much. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Have you seen a lot of turnover of like Amazon sellers like that you prep for that drop out?
No one's making just a drastic turnover full time to Walmart, but there are definitely, I'd say we're sitting at about 30-40% are at least like starting to sell on Walmart, which I had to take a special trip up here when I first started Walmart and learn how to do the listing, the WFS side, the converting, all these different terms. Once I learned it, I took a flight up here and I taught the whole team. So I spent a week up here, and then I was able to open it up to all network prep clients, say like, all right, guys, I know you're dealing with beauty restrictions and all these crazy things going on. There's a new opportunity over here where you can sell that restricted stuff that you already own. The problem with the prep center side too is like we deal with quite a few people that pop up with restrictions, even though they were approved when they ordered it. It gets here, it gets unboxed, it's set on the table, they go to check it in and it pops up restricted. And then they're stuck with, we don't want to return it to the retailers. That's just like huge red flag. And that's something that we teach is never return your bad buys. And so they're stuck with, okay, we got to eBay it or we have to ship it to them in a personal box. But now with Walmart, we have another opportunity where it's like, hey, here's a couple of videos I'm going to shoot for you. And I want you to go ahead and get approved on Walmart. And then once you're done there, give us user permission and we can help you get set up and ship those over to the Walmart side or seller fulfill them.
Well, what are the margins looking like on Walmart? And the volume, everything in general compared to, your Amazon.
Yeah, this is where the toughest factor with Walmart is just the lack of data. They don't give up their back end data. So there is no keep a chart. There is no sales rank. We have no idea truly how many units are selling per month. And Walmart will give you like a little thing on the shopping cart, kind of like Amazon does now, where it's like 400 plus bought. So they have their own version of like how many units are in a shopping cart or whatever the case is, or like 200 people shopping cart. So there's some loose data we can go by, but for the most part, when we're scanning items, especially as retail arbitrage based, all I'm doing is checking for the review counts, because obviously we all know that it takes a lot of orders to get one product review. I don't remember what the exact ratio was. It was something like 1 out of 1,000 orders will leave a review, something very high. So if there's more than 5 reviews on a product, it's moving. And you can also just check how recent the reviews were. Because if the reviews on something I scan were 2 years ago and there's nothing since then, I may not buy more than just a few units to test. But if I see it's got 100 or 200 reviews and there's a buttload that have been done the last 3 months, I'm going to be comfortable buying 10, 20, 30 of that thing, as long as there's some wiggle room for profit in there. As far as the margin goes, there's far less competition. So I'm actually selling things for more than sometimes what's on Amazon, to the point where I've actually been, one of my new things I'm playing around with, I have myself set up as a client here because it's sales tax free. So I was doing this in Texas, but I was paying sales tax. So I set myself up as a client here, but I'm doing Amazon to Walmart flips now. So I'm using Keepa and Keepa Finder, Keepa Deals, where I can catch those 30% discounts on different things like supplements, but they're selling for full price over on Walmart. So I can arbitrage the difference there. So now there's like this whole new opportunity that's popped up. But where you might find 20 or 30 sellers on an Amazon listing, there might be 5 on the exact same Walmart side. So that's kind of the ratio that we're seeing, which means if there's less competition, your price isn't going to tank as quickly. And you still deal with all of that sometimes on some listings, but for the most part, less competition means you can get a higher price out of it. And most people are pricing pretty similar to each other, which has been really nice. There's not as much penny pinching and trying to fight over that buy box as much.
That's awesome. Replens? Do you get a lot of replens on there?
I started playing around with that. I just made a spreadsheet a couple weeks ago. So I do have, we have a chain of stores. So we don't have grocery stores in Texas. We have a giant chain called HEB. That's our big grocery chain. So I've been focused on finding some replen stuff down there. And I do have a small list that I've been testing out. And so far it's been working. And in that world, I'm not looking for any crazy home run hits for replen stuff. If I can make, my minimum is $3 on a replen item. If I can make $3 and it sells 5 or 10 a month, that's easy money to just pick up when I'm in the grocery store every week anyways.
That's awesome, because it's like the days now, a replen on Amazon's like best of luck, because it's going to tank as soon as it,
That's tough.
It's good to hear it's more sustainable over there. I feel like that's kind of what gives you that peace of mind as well. Knowing that okay, I can at least rely on this to bring me in, $500 a month or $400 a month.
For sure. But so far I've been loving it. And the funny part is I had a Walmart account open for like 2.5 years. The same thing. I had an onboarding call scheduled. I couldn't make it for some reason. Then I just, I'll do the Walmart thing later on. And then we had a Zoom call in our group with, if you guys are familiar with Sarah Ray. Yeah. So Sarah hopped on. She's our Walmart person in that group. She hops on, does this great Walmart Zoom call. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm an idiot for not utilizing this account that I've had for 2+ years. So I went out that next day and started sourcing. I'm just using the Walmart customer app. And you're looking at the in-store price versus what it sells for on .com. So you can buy it on clearance for $5, sell it for 20. And if they have 10 of them, like, great, let's test it out. So Sarah's the one that really got me jump started on that whole thing. And then I was bugging her with all the newbie questions. And so I felt like a brand new seller all over again. So she was a huge, huge moment for me to have an eye-opening experience and get my butt going with it.
John, what else you got?
Are you doing the Amazon influencer program?
Yeah, I've been terrible at uploading, but I have uploaded. I did 10, like the first 10 videos, and just on those first 10, I haven't checked the account like a month. It made like $20, and I was like, sweet, that was like 30-second point and shoot, no editing type videos. So I'm excited to actually, like, especially in the warehouse, man. I've got hundreds of Amazon products in the warehouse, and like not cheap stuff. We've got like AV carts that I bought off Amazon, like all these different cool warehouse items. So it's definitely something I'm going to work on. But I do have probably, I hate to admit it, probably 40 different videos on my phone. They're just not uploaded. So have I started? Yes. I need to get more consistent with it is the hard part.
Yeah, the uploading the videos is probably like the harder part, or like the most annoying part for that. I do a lot of it on the desktop because it's just easier. So just have like a seller amp sheet and just like just copy and paste the ASIN.
Nice.
That's pretty much been like the easiest part for me.
Nice.
How do you decide whether you're going to get into something new like that? Do you have like what's your criteria?
I used to just say yes to everything, and that was half my problem for years. And then I questioned why I hit these horrible mental burnouts that lasted for months at a time, where I would disappear from the world, to the point where like our Instagram audience knows if I'm mentally like toast because I just stop posting. And I get messages if it's been like 2 or 3 days, I'm not done. My big thing I document on is Instagram stories. That's my number. I document every single day. I don't think there's a day that goes by I don't document something. And so if it goes 2 or 3 days in a row of not documenting, people reach out and they're like, hey, you doing okay? But that's taken years of me saying yes to everything to hit those burnouts to finally get to the point in life. And I've been posting about it this week too, where I'm doing a lot of reflecting just on all the stuff we've been through and this new chapter we're in. This becoming a full-time seller ourselves again is all a fresh chapter again. And I'm doing a lot of reflecting. And I just did a post, which is no is a complete sentence. Saying no to squirrel moments of, influencer program over here. And then we have Walmart, and then we have eBay. And then it breaks down to niches like, okay, I'm going to start doing Walmart. Everyone's doing personal care. I need to do that. Well, this guy's doing great with toys. Let me go try that. There's like all these things you can do and try. And nowadays I'm honestly just learning that saying no is going to keep me more focused on the thing that's working currently until it doesn't work anymore. The way that I will take on a new opportunity is if I can create a system around what I'm currently doing and it can keep running and keep growing with me doing something else. Because this is the biggest mistake that we've ever made in all the stuff we've been doing for the last 9 years. Is in 2020, going 2021 is when our prep center baby really just went boom. We went from like 20 clients to 50 very quickly. So our volume went from like 5 to 10,000 units a month to 40,000 units a month. It boomed quite large. At the time, we had no systems in place. It was me and Trista being the filter in the funnel for everything, to the point where we were the ones really doing all the inventory lab checking in. And then the crew that we had, 4 or 5 people part-time, was all the prep. And so they knew how to do prep. And we just, as most new business owners with staff learn, is you can't do it all. You have to let go of control. So during this time, we had a very successful YouTube channel. We grew over 100,000 subscribers very quickly. It was making a pretty decent income just by itself with affiliates and ad revenue. We had some paid private groups that we were hosting and running at the time, and everything was going very well. The problem is, and the biggest mistake that we made, is I said yes to this new opportunity, which is Prep Center World. I said yes, and I made a big pivot to put a lot of full-time focus over there. But the problem is I had no systems put together for my YouTube channel, for the private groups that we were running, for the coaching that we were doing. I had no systems involved. It was just me. So when I stopped putting time and attention over to it, all of it went down to zero. YouTube, it got down to like 50 something bucks a month versus what could have been a full-time income. And so that was the biggest mistake that we made. So I've learned my lesson by saying yes to the next thing too quickly without having things in place. So am I open for other opportunities? Of course, we're serial entrepreneurs here. But I won't say yes anymore unless I have a system around my current thing. So for me right now, my number one focus above everything is retail arbitrage, selling on Walmart. I'm not going to get out of that role until I get a system in place, I get a shopper, and I have somebody that can handle my shipping. So that's kind of my hard set boundaries that I've learned over the years to set for myself.
Yeah,
what made you walk away from the YouTube then to open the prep center? Did you just see it was a bigger opportunity?
It honestly wasn't even like I'm going to choose this over the other. It just kind of phased out. And I was so tired and burnt out by the time I was like, oh man, I haven't done a video in 2 weeks. I used to do 2 a week and I was so consistent with it. And then it started with like the prep center got a little bit busy and I missed a week or 2 of YouTube videos, and then I go shoot a few YouTube videos, and then it got really busy and I'm like, shit, I have no way of doing the YouTube side and this. And this, it's not just like point and shoot a YouTube video and upload. It's hours of editing, and you have to come up with the content, the creative side, the title, the thumbnails, the SEO that goes into all of it. And it wasn't ever just like, I'm going to stop doing YouTube and start doing Prep Center. It was never that conversation. It was just, over time, I'm like, it's been a year and I haven't uploaded now. Like, I felt terrible because our audience is like, hello, where'd you go? And it finally took 2.5 years down the road, 3 years later, where we are now, for me to realize I left a pretty awesome opportunity on the table for no reason. So that was the biggest mistake I think we've made.
Would you say that's your biggest regret out of all of it? This is funny because I
100%.
quit Amazon a few months ago and or a year ago, I guess, around now, and I stopped posting on Instagram because I'm like, I don't even know what to talk about. But hearing you say that, it's like you kind of do just like
it was the biggest mistake I've made out of everything that we've done, because everything we have as far as Prep Center world goes stemmed from having an audience. We've done zero paid marketing for network prep this whole time.
Wow.
And even when it came down to like hosting private paid groups that we do, I never had to do marketing because we always had an audience. So yes, of course, the core of it is like, I want to give back. I want to teach. I want to be able to do tutorial videos free on YouTube and not collect anything. But then when it came for us to host something paid, like a prep center or a paid group or an OA list that we were partnering up with, different opportunities came up like that. And I was able to do a YouTube video or an Instagram post, and boom, we went ahead and got people signed up. So by letting go of an audience, that lets go of your opportunity to build a personal brand, which now I know better. I literally gave up a personal brand and I'm having to rebuild that from scratch.
How's been the rebuilding? Have you noticed like a fall off? We talked to Reagan. He was talking about how he had switched his content. He's getting like 300 views a video and he has like 150,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
He said it's so hard to build it back.
It's tough because, Reagan's a great example of like, you build one type of audience, or I guess you build one type of content that you build an audience with because they want that. And then if you switch it, most of them aren't wanting that. It's basic supply and demand. It's like if you're used to buying one type of product and it sells really well, and then you switch over to something else and it just tanks, right? Same thing. So I'm kind of in that same boat where rebuilding everything from scratch. Instagram's been the one that's been very consistent because I've always done stories, but because it's quick and easy. But sitting down to like film and edit a YouTube video, a little bit more time consuming. But I've been back on, I posted the whole closure of our warehouse is all documented on video. I basically was taking small clips for the last 6 months, and then I just spliced it all together in one video to show the whole process. So that was kind of the kickoff. I uploaded that, I think 3 weeks ago. And then on this trip, I'm going to be filming some stuff here in the warehouse and just right back on track with once a week, do a video. I'm going to play around with different ideas, different niches. So I can do some eBay content. I could do some Amazon. I could do some Walmart and kind of see where the audience attention is sticking. Right. And that just gets into when you first start selling, sell a little bit of everything and then fine tune what your niche is, right? Or your category. So same thing with content. Posting a wide variety and kind of seeing where the attention goes and then leaning into that on the content side.
It's funny you say that. I noticed that. I was watching your videos this morning and they're very entertaining because you show yourself running, you give some like life advice, and then you'll go to something else.
I'm all over the place. It's called extreme ADHD.
It's good. I mean, I think it's very entertaining. It's very pattern interrupt. Like if I have to listen to somebody talk about one thing forever, which is what everybody's doing right now, but it's tough compared to, okay, now you're sweating from something. It's definitely more entertaining. Sure. I like it.
And I've always loved doing that style of content because it's what I like to watch is behind the scenes real life. Mm-hmm. Let's face it, there are endless amounts of videos with all the same information. We all know about online arbitrage. We all know about retail arbitrage. We all know how to ship. Like there's no information that we're going to watch on YouTube these days or Instagram that's going to be like, oh my gosh, that's so groundbreaking. That just changed my entire business. All we're looking for is real connections in life these days. And that's the type of content that I post where I'm like, I'm going to post like a really great seller tip. And then the next slide over on stories is like, I'm eating steak for lunch. I enjoy seeing people's real life behind the scenes. So I'm like, you see my kids jumping around the living room in one clip, and then the next clip I'm talking about eBay. Like I'm just documenting what we do every day because it's never the amount of business that goes on in our daily life is actually very small. I truly work 4 to 6 hours a day. The rest of it is like my boy is in soccer. He's in soccer, karate, violin. He's got all kinds of stuff going on. Our 5-year-old just started getting into some stuff, homeschooling. So that's actually where a bulk of our day goes is more personal life stuff. And that's very much where I like to start focusing some attention, because people start to connect with them like, oh, he's busy too. Like, he's got kids he's feeding as well. It's not just, I'm going to go hustle for 12 hours in Walmart today and make a ton of money and then leave my family without a father or a husband. I'm over that. I don't believe in that mindset anymore.
I think it humanizes you too when you do that. Yeah. It's like, I know when everybody probably initially got into this, you see the business gurus and you're like, these people are like gods, you know, like I can never be like that. Now it's more so what you're talking about, more behind the scenes. And you're like, this person's the same as me. Like, I actually have more time to work than them, or, you know, I have less responsibility. So like, why can't I make it? Yeah, I love that type of thing. I think it's inspiring, more inspiring than kind of anything you can do, in my opinion.
For sure. And I'm the same way. I very much enjoy, I have a much higher level of respect for people that are openly documenting their actual daily life than the ones who are just putting on this curated, perfectly edited, professional video every week. I have way more in-depth conversations with the real people. The best friendships and relationships I have in this whole business are from the ones that we've talked about, like hard life stuff. And the funny part is, you guys have probably seen this too, when you go to meetups, it's funny, the difference between, if you go to an Amazon meetup, people talk about numbers, graphs. Oh, look at my orange bars. If you go to any other meetup, which is like, especially we spent a week in San Francisco at the Walmart Summit, we had 30 of our own group members there. Same thing with all the eBay events I've been to, where there's hundreds of eBay people. We talk about real life. And those are the deepest connections and relationships I have of any of my friends in this business now. It's not because we connected over business. It's because we connected on a personal level. And now when I watch their content, I have real in-depth context for what they're going through in life.
That's great.
What do you think about the content that is kind of being produced now? You've been in it for 9 years. I've only been in this for 5 years. And it's so much different. Like,
dude, I told you from the beginning, I'm an open book, which I'm not name dropping, but I won't name drop. That's the one thing I won't do. But I am an open book, which means I cannot stand half the content these days. It is so overly production value produced with the like insane graphic thumbnails. You will never see any of that for me. I am so proud to say that I am the exact same human today as I was 9 years ago in the internet. The number one thing people say to me when they meet me in person is like, oh my gosh, like you're just as laid back and chill in person. I'm like, yeah, because I put out my authentic self and I always have. Very rarely will you ever see me put on this high energy face for a camera. And then when you meet me in person, I'm this like super low energy person, because that's a common thing that you see these days. So how do I feel about the content these days? Can't stand half of it. Not to say that they're not great humans. And there's a distinction there. I just think even great humans can put on a fake profile based on the personality they want to create for the internet. I'll say this, that's not just in the reselling space. That's anyone with a YouTube channel or a following. Everyone does it in every single niche. But I very much believe in just pure authenticity, being transparent, which is what I've done for 9 years. And that's the people I respect most today who are content creators are the ones who follow that exact same mindset as well.
Yeah, I like it, man. The authentic thing, I feel like nowadays where it's rewarded to be fake, that's why you see all the fake type of stuff. It's just like, oh, I get more likes, I get more of this. And little do people know, like, this is the truth about it, is if you're authentic and you're, you know, make the kind of stuff you do, you end up making more money anyways, because the customers that you get, they're better. People trust you more. And when you do this fake thing, maybe it works for a little bit, but you burn out and you get really people that believe that fake shit. Yeah, guess what? Those guys are not going to be great guys to have as your customers and stuff like that.
And then when those people meet you in person, they're disappointed because you're not the personality they see online.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
And it's sad that we're in a society these days where the person with the saddest sob story wins. The person, not just that, it's the person who's loudest about their sob story.
Yep.
Wins. And sadly, that's society today. And it sucks. It's like, we all have been through hard stuff. We all are here and stronger because of it. Some of us choose not to dwell and reflect and be loud about it just to draw that attention in. I get far less views than I probably deserve because I'm just raw and authentic and try to be as positive as I can about moving forward. You don't hear the sob stories. You don't hear the sad things I've been through because I've been through them as well. What you hear is here's what I'm doing in life, and I'm just going to document the journey along the way.
Well, based on a few things you've said, and you talked about responsibility and that stuff, I'm sure I know your thoughts already, but I'm interested to hear you talk about it. You decided to homeschool the kids. What's your big reason for doing that? And
oh man, it's the school system, dude. Everyone who homeschools will tell you the same thing. The school system is so rigged and jacked up. It's training prisoners is what it's doing, right? You can take your lunch. You get 30 to 60 minutes for lunch if you're lucky. You get outdoor time. And then you get a clock out at 5 and go home, right? So it's training the typical 9 to 5 job mentality from the get-go. The problem we ran into, the final factor that had us make that decision, was our boy was in second grade when we did that transition out. In second grade, they're not learning a whole lot, right? And we drop him off at school in the morning. He's there for 8 hours. They were having 4 to 5 recesses. And the one part about public school that I'm all for is the social aspect. That's actually the reason why. So my wife was homeschooled her whole life. I was public schooled in a class of 68 people. So I come from very small town vibes. So I get the power of the social aspect, and that's why we butt heads for about a year, because I wanted to homeschool, but I don't want him to be the awkward kid that's homeschooled. So that's a whole different conversation on that part. But the school system itself, he was going to school for 8 hours, 4 or 5 recesses. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, what did you learn? Tell me 3 great things about your day. And it's like, well, we kind of just didn't do a whole lot. And then he's sent home. This is the factor. He's sent home with these packets of homework that are expected to be done that night to be turned in the next morning. It's like, if he gets out of school at 3:30 at the time is what it was. If he gets out of school at 3:30, get home. I'm a big believer in letting him have a decompress. The same way where I'm done with work, I need to decompress, right? That's just how we are as humans. When we're done with something, especially work related, we need to decompress. So I'm a big believer of, okay, we get home at 3:40. Let him decompress for 30, 45 minutes. He can play on his iPad, play the Xbox. We limit the screen time, but that's like his 45-minute window. From there, typically he'd be doing soccer practice, or we'd be running off to karate or violin or whatever activity he's in at the time. And then by the time we get back and eat dinner, it's already 7:30 going into 8 o'clock. And it's like, hey, time to do your homework packet.
Shit.
It's like, when have I spent one-on-one time with my own child at this point? And then we start doing more research on the homeschooling, and all the people say the same thing. There's a learning curve, just learning to become a teacher, not just the parent of your child. That's a different ball game, different mentality. And then they all said that even though as difficult as it is, it's been 100% worth it, because their actual schoolwork gets done in like 3 hours. 4 if they're being mouthy, because those days happen. But really, you can get all the actual schoolwork done in 3 or less hours. And then they have the rest of the day, especially because we work at home full time now. I'm like, I get the whole day to spend with my kids. And usually by 3 o'clock, it's like, we're taking the dog and we're going up to the park. We've got a splash pad up there. We can go have some fun for a few hours. Like, we can go out and do things. We've gone to the beach in the middle of a Tuesday just because we can. And the nice part about homeschooling is you can do all of your activities during the week when nobody else is at those things, which is pretty great.
That's a good point.
But yeah, the homeschooling thing, it started just with a crappy school system. Oregon had a crappy one, and then we got to Texas. It was a little better, but we just were not fans of go to school for 8 hours to be sent home with all these packets at second grade. Like, when you're in middle school and you're learning real things, sure. But we're talking about second grade here, like 7 and 8 year olds.
Well, I feel like you bring up the biggest downside, right? That people think is the awkwardness thing. What do you kind of do to get away with? Because I want to homeschool my kids. I don't have them yet, but eventually. But that's all I hear. It's like, they're gonna be awkward. They're gonna be awkward. It's like,
yeah.
I don't know. I have a few thoughts, but I'm interested to a real person that's doing it.
The big thing for us is I think it would become like the awkward kid situation if they're just limited from other human contact is what it probably comes down to. And it's tough because we know how fortunate we are because we are a husband-wife team. Everything is done as a team. Trista handles a lot of the homeschooling stuff right now, but there's very much days where she's overwhelmed and I pitch in and take care of a lot of extra stuff for her. But we very much appreciate and accept how lucky we are to have that position of, like, we have each other. I feel for the ones that Trista feels it right now, because I'm in Oregon. She's at home in Texas taking care of the business, the daily shipping, and the kids in the homeschool. So she's feeling it more than ever right now, which is, I feel for the ones that have the husband that goes to work full time, and then the mom is left to take care of the homeschooling and all this stuff. And then the amount of mental burnout that happens on a daily basis, it's no wonder why you have no energy to take them out and do anything. But to answer the question of how do we get the awkward side to not be a thing, one is getting him involved with activities. And then our same thing with she just turned 5. So now we're going to force her, even though she doesn't want to, we're going to force her to get into like gymnastics, or like there has to be something she does. Right. So getting involved with activities has been a game changer. And then also there's homeschool co-op groups inside of pretty much every major city that you would find. So for us being in Texas, it's hot all the freaking time, which means rivers. So every Friday there's a co-op homeschool group of I'm talking like 30 kids. So it's not a small thing. And all the moms can go hang out and so build some friendships there. And then the kids all get to hang out and go to the river. There's tons of co-op stuff that goes on all over the place. So if you guys are in that position of like, we want to homeschool, but what about the social side? There's so many activities and things you can plug them into. The hard part then becomes you have to make it a priority, because it's so easy as a parent when you get caught up, especially as a business owner, you can get so caught up in what you're doing that 5 o'clock rolls around and you're like, oh, there's a co-op thing going on, but I'm so busy. We'll go tomorrow, or we'll go the next time. That's easy to do. So we have to make sure it's a priority, that it's not just about us here. We're focused on building their social skills. Mm-hmm. We're building up their own self. So we have to make that a priority.
I'm sure the people you hang around that crew too, probably like-minded as well. The kids you want your kids to be around. Sure. Other, like, instead of like a school where you kind of just get, you don't really know what you're putting them into at that time.
Exactly. And there's, scary stuff that goes on in schools. We had nothing bad came of it, but there was a situation that popped up that involved my kid. I had to almost go dad mode on somebody, but that was another situation that popped up where it's like zero clue that this could have ever happened to my kid. And it did. And so all these different, you throw your kid just blindly into a school system that truly it's never 100% safe. Nobody knows for 100% fact that is. Which is sad, but it's the reality. And I'd fully understand that not everyone's in a position of like, you can just go homeschool, right? If you're in a family setup and you both have full-time careers and jobs you can't get out of, then you got to look, okay, do we need to hire a tutor, hire a nanny, hire someone to homeschool them? There's all these conversations that happen in all these different family setups, which is why I say we don't for one day take for granted the setup that we have. But the flip side of that too is I also acknowledge that we had to work our asses off to build that. Mm. I didn't quit my job by accident. My wife didn't quit her job by accident. That took years of the 12-hour days, of the hustle and grind to build the lifestyle that we wanted, which is we want to homeschool our kids. We want to travel. We want to teach them what we want to teach them. Like I'm literally going to have an automotive class. I work on cars as like a hobby. I'm going to have an automotive class where on Fridays, my boy's going to learn at 9 years old how to change a tire, how to change the oil, how to do spark plugs. I'm going to teach him these things. These are not activities that would ever be taught in a school system. And the cool part too is when you build a friend group of other homeschool families, now on those Fridays when I get home, I'm going to start doing this. When I get home, start doing my Friday auto class, those other kids and those parents can come too. And now their kids can get involved with like a little parent class something. Someone else can host an outdoor activity. So it's like every Tuesday, there's a group that can go on a hike just on this little half-mile loop, and they can learn about the different rocks or the different plants. So there's like these real life situations we can talk about with these groups of kids, which for me, I get lit up talking about that stuff where I get to teach real life stuff. Because in school, you're not taught anything about how to change your own oil and the fact you can save thousands of dollars a year by doing it yourself. And it's not hard to do. The fact that we have credit scores. How does that work? I never knew anything about that till I was like 25 and realized I was really broken in debt. I'm like, oh, a 500 credit score is actually really terrible. No wonder why no one wants to give me anything. So real life situations is what we're fired up about to be teaching these kids.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like everything's kind of moving in that direction a bit slowly. I
It
saw a stat
is.
about it. I think there's more kids homeschooled now than ever by like a significant amount. After COVID, that kind of just
Yeah,
pushed it in that direction.
it really did. And I think COVID forced most families to realize like they have an opportunity to do that. Because a lot of schools went to the Zoom system. And then I'm sure a lot of families at the time were like, okay, they're at home, they're on this Zoom call. I literally can teach them exactly what I just heard. And I think that's where a lot of people started to open up their eyes to the opportunity of like, maybe we can kick around the homeschool thing a little bit more seriously and give this a shot.
What else you got, John? About hour and 5, right?
Yeah, about that. I started in one of your YouTube videos. You said you didn't create a business so you could become a slave to it. It should enhance your lifestyle.
True.
You want to talk more about that? Because I feel like that's a big issue.
It is a big issue. So all of this stemmed from, if you guys haven't read The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, that's the book that changed everything for me. So in the book, he talks about 3 major roles with running a business. There's technician, which is the grunt work, the day-to-day. So talking from a prep center standpoint, or even as a seller, the prep work on the table, the physical shipping of the products is a technician role. The next step up is the manager. The manager is somebody who is great at overseeing people and overseeing systems and making sure that the day-to-day is ran smoothly. The third one is the entrepreneur. This is the creative. This is the big picture. This is the visionary. This is the idea, the thought machine. So and I went at the time when I read this book, for context, Tristan and I are on the tables prepping and shipping 40 hours a week each. I read the book, I finish it, I come in the next day, and that book made me realize I was forcing myself to be a technician, the physical prepping and shipping every day, and not trusting the staff to run inventory lab because I was the only one qualified to do it. I was the best, right? So letting go of control. I realized that moment when I finished that book that I was forcing myself to be in a technician role, which was actually hindering the growth of the company because nobody was being the visionary, which I realized very quickly. I am the entrepreneur. I am an idea factory. That's all I think about is thoughts and ideas and improvements. That is how my brain works. I am not a day-to-day be on the tables type person. So when I came in the next day, you can imagine the shade that was thrown at this. Come in, I told Tristan, I'm like, hey, this is going to sound really, really bad. And you have to read the book to get on the same communication style with me now, but I'm not prepping anymore, like overnight. And so that was a conversation of like, well, how do you expect to do that? I had to fire myself out of that role, which means I had to hire 2 part-time people to come fill the job that I was doing so I can step back and come in here and be like, all right, visionary. I get to now work on my craft, my gift, which is big picture thinking. I can look at something and ask myself, how can I make it faster or better? That's just my operation mode. And I had diluted that part of my brain for years because I thought I was the only one that can do the inventory lab part and then prepping and shipping. So I fired myself out of that role because in that book, you start to realize that I didn't create a business. My wife and I did not make a business. We created glorified jobs for ourselves. We were very much on the prep tables 40 hours a week doing work that we did not necessarily enjoy. I enjoy helping other sellers. I enjoy the messages I get where it's like, hey, because your team handles my shipping, I save 10 hours a week now and I get to go hang out with my family or I get to go source more. We have one set of clients, a husband-wife team. They offloaded all their inventory to us over the course of a year. They started to really trust us after a year and sent everything to us, 7-figure sellers now. And they hopped over to Europe for a year because our team was able to handle their products. I enjoy hearing that. That's why we do this. We don't do it because we love prepping and shipping. So we created a glorified job for ourselves. We became a slave to the business. And that book is what made me open my eyes to this. Trista read the book because, of course, there were a lot of conversations to be had after I made the statement, I'm not going to prep anymore. So that took a few weeks to get a couple people hired, get my hands off the table. Okay, now I can do big picture stuff. Physically, just looking at the warehouse going, wow, I just realized my head's been down on the table this whole time for months. I didn't even realize we have a terrible layout in the warehouse. Let's move the pallet racking around and set it up this way so we're quicker and faster and we can reach things better. So that's where my brain got to start to go to work as the business owner, as the entrepreneur. Meanwhile, Trista reads the book. She now understands my decision, and she realized, wow, I'm not a technician either. I should not be prepping and shipping. I am a manager. She also acknowledged, she came to me and she's like, I realize I thought I want to be an entrepreneur, and that's not how my brain works. She openly admitted, she's like, I don't look at the big picture. I can't look at something and ask, how can I make it better or improve it? That's the visionary, the creative. But she very quickly realized, I am a manager. I enjoy running a system or working with a team. So she stepped out of the prep role. We had to hire 2 more people to replace her. And so she was able to step back and to become the day-to-day operations manager. And then because we set all of these in place, we no longer were a slave to the business. We were able to focus on the things that we should be focusing on based on our strengths. And when it came time to move about a year later from Oregon to Texas, because we took those steps to fire ourselves out of the roles and get systems in place and have the right people run those systems that were technicians, we were able to move down to Texas, upgrade Jamie from being just the technician and small manager role to now being the operations person. She is the brains up here. She is the day-to-day manager. And this is also why I'm up here so often. Every couple months I come up here, because I still am the visionary of this whole thing. I have to physically put my hands on this place and ask, like, do we need better pallet racking? Do we need to change our workstations? We've changed our workflows like 10 times in this building, because every time I come up, I think of something a little bit better. Or even better is when you get your team to think that way. And then when I come up, there's a list of ideas. Great. That's when it gets to be fun, is when your business is improving, not because of you, but because your team around you is like, hey, idea. What do you think about this? Genius. I didn't even think about that. We've had tons of things like that around here.
Yeah, that's awesome. What's the book called again?
E-Myth by Michael Gerber.
Okay. I have to remember that.
I honestly, when I have people come to me like, hey, I need some coaching, I won't talk to them until they read the book. Because I'm speaking a different language.
It's a really good book.
Yep. You speak a different language at that point. Because in there, he talks about, all the different roles in your business. You've got the sales, you've got the marketing, you've got prep and shipping, you got all these different positions. And you put on this entrepreneur business owner hat on, and you're trying to do it all. It just leads to burnout, man. So in there, he just talks about like write up. He even goes as far as to say, make a written contract looking for a marketing person, and that's your role. And you sign that contract when you do it, and then you can hand it off to somebody else, because it's all written down in like an SOP form. And that's when business gets fun, man. When you can step back and stop being a slave to it, that's when it gets fun. When you're working so much in it day to day and you lose the visionary portion of your brain, it gets diluted down. You're not using it that much. The creative side, how can I think bigger? How can I do more? You lose that side of it, and it just becomes grunt work, and then you burn out. We all go through it.
Yeah, you're speaking to me right now. I feel like it right after this, but you're transmitting this because I'm trying to start. I've been starting something for a while, and I'm like, I've got to hire out some of this stuff, because like you focus on one task. I guess it's this technician type stuff, and then you just don't even have time or bandwidth to even get into the other stuff.
You don't.
You're like a dull blade, really, because you're just sitting there hammering out bad stuff all the time.
Exactly. It's the same reason when we really push for growth on the prep center. The big mistake I made was I went all in on the prep center without putting anything in place to keep the other stuff going. So our own reselling for like 2 years was just zero. I had no time to list my own stuff on eBay. Because it was all client work. I was listing plenty of client stuff on their eBay accounts, but not ours. Because by the time 6 o'clock rolls around, I'm like, man, I should probably feed my kids at some point. And then 9 o'clock is done after family time and dinner. And then I'm like, I am so beyond beat. I can't even fathom listing my own products right now. So it's just, like you said, it was just when your head's down in it so much, you just lose sight of all the bigger stuff that should be being worked on.
Now, I'm curious your opinion on this. If a company is just starting, or if they're not making a lot of money or whatever, when do you think is the time to do that? Or is it just you should start it initially and just trust yourself that it's going to work out or whatever?
As far as hiring and doing that aspect?
Yeah.
When you start to become capped on your time is when you need to start looking at that, because time is the most valuable asset we all have. And we all know that. We all hear it. But those of us who don't actually make it a priority, is pretty crazy, because I know I struggled for years. So when we started getting capped on our time, so like I said, we were prepping 40 hours a week each, no time for YouTube videos, no time for our own eBay account, our own Amazon account. All of it dwindled down to zero. And then when I fully acknowledged that, I'm like, okay, we're capped on time. This is a problem. That's when we opened up our eyes to the aspect of, okay, if we need to hire staff, we have to write down exactly how we do everything. It has to get out of your head. So as you start to get capped on your time is a great time to sit down and make SOPs. So it's just basic operating procedures, exactly step by step. How do you do the thing you do? So if you are doing Amazon to Amazon flips or online arbitrage, there should be a written list somewhere or a video recording of you doing the task so that you can hire someone else to do that. And then boom, you just bought back your time. It's the same thing as when we have clients reach out and they come to us as a prep center. I always ask them one question: how many hours per week are you spending on your own prepping and shipping? The average is about 10. So when they come to us, because they're capped on time, so instead of hiring an employee, they can use a prep center. They hire the prep center, which is us. We now save them 10 hours of time, and they can go focus on either family or building their business. They're out of that technician role. And so that for us is the most fulfilling aspect, to be able to help people do that. But when you get capped on time is when it's really start to look at how can you outsource it, whether it's a software, a virtual assistant, or physical staff, or a service. Those are like your 4 different options.
Awesome. This has been so insightful, man. John, do you have anything else?
I think we got through all the questions I had, for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah. Do you have any last final words you want to give to the people? I'm sure this has been just insane. Yeah. There's so much good stuff, man. This has been awesome.
I appreciate that. I mean, I've been at this a long time, and I have made more mistakes than probably most average sellers have. We could do a whole failures only episode if you guys want to schedule that one out. Sure. Final words I usually give people is the number one reason people are struggling most as sellers really just comes down to consistency. And I hate saying the stereotypical, like, you got to be consistent, but it truly is the determining factor of success. If you stay consistent with small daily activities over time, you are going to have far greater results than if you try to do big things every now and then when you're motivated. It's the same concept as the personal trainer side of me. I can't tell you how many clients that I would see where they reach out and they're like, all right, starting Monday, it's game on. We've all done this. Game on. Monday, it's on. I'm going to pig out over Sunday, drink the last of my booze, and then Monday, it's game on. And then by Wednesday, you're like, yeah, Chick-fil-A sounds fine. And then it turns into binge eating at night, and then it never happens. So every now and then you get motivated to commit to this big thing. Versus I had a client that all she did was, not drastically, she just slowly cleaned up her diet, stopped eating as much junk food, and she went for a 30-minute walk every day, and she lost 80 pounds.
Jeez. That's amazing.
Committed to small daily activities. Over time, created far greater impact than if every other month she's like, okay, this Monday, game on, let's do it. And I bring that up, and hopefully one of you at least caught on to the fact that I'm no longer talking about just personal training and fitness stuff, because that's how most people are treating their business. That's how I can talk about it, because that's how I did it. I never talk about things I haven't gone through myself. I would get motivated every now and then. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm hitting 500K this year. This is the year. And then June gets here and I'm like, I am not on track at all because I've not been consistent. Or like, how many times have you gotten up and you look at your returns death pile and you're like, okay,
oh my God,
this Monday, man, I'm going to list all of that on eBay this week. And then Friday gets here and you're like, I didn't even look at that pile this week. If you consistently are trying to do a big commitment every now and then when you get motivated, it's never going to work. Has it worked so far? And for those of you watching the recording, like, ask yourself, has what you've done so far worked? Because if the answer is no, then something's got to change. That change is committing to smaller daily activities. So if you're an eBay seller, or if you're an Amazon or Walmart seller and you have this massive death pile of customer returns that you know you just need to get rid of on eBay, commit to 3 items a day. That takes less than 15 minutes to do the photos, do the listing, and you're done. Even better is if you front load that at the first part of your work day. So like for example, I start work at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. to 11 is committed to the one thing I don't want to do. If it's the thing I would procrastinate, which most of the time, because I don't like listing on eBay, that's listings. So what do I do first thing when I start my workday? I do the worst part first, which is the eBay listings. And then they're done. And the rest of my day is cake, and I get to focus on things I want to focus on. Consistent, small commitments are going to drive way better results. And I wish more people understood that aspect. The second thing that people struggle with too, and this also ties into consistency, is lack of accountability.
Mm-hmm.
You can scroll Instagram all day long, but if you don't have some type of community or small group chat going on with other sellers, there's got to be some level of accountability in this industry. So many people as resellers are trying to just like hit the ground all by themselves and try to figure out how to go the distance. You've got to have people to bounce ideas off of, or just we have Zoom call event sessions sometimes in ours, but it doesn't matter whose group you get involved with or which group chat, or just message one or two other sellers. But having accountability is a huge missing factor in this whole thing. I can easily look at things from the fitness trainer perspective in the reselling world, because there's so many common grounds. In the fitness aspect, is it easier to lose 50 pounds by yourself or to be involved with a community that's supporting you?
Yeah.
Accountability means everything. So I think in this space, I wish the term accountability was thrown around a little bit more, because lack of accountability is one of the reasons people are just not sticking with anything, right? They bounce around on eBay for 6 months, make a little bit of money. Then they see this thing about Amazon. So they bounce around Amazon for 6 months, make a little bit of money. Well, Walmart's a thing now. Amazon influencer program is a thing. If you just bounce around thing to thing, again, I've done it. That's why I can talk about it. You're going to struggle, man. I wish I can go back and kick myself. I would have saved. I can say I've been in this business 9 years, but there's people that have 10x'd what I've done because they were committed for 2 years. I had a hard time committing fully to any one thing for more than like a year at a time before context switching. Consistency and get yourself some accountability, however that looks, are the big missing pieces in this industry.
Last question. If you could go back, would you double down on the YouTube and the coaching and not do the prep center?
That's a good question. This is where it gets into the moral side, because I could have made, let's put it this way, I could make way more actual money in my personal pockets doing YouTube and coaching and making courses. I still to this day have never made a course. I of all people in the early days of Amazon, I should have made something, right? I tell people all the time, I missed out on hundreds of thousands of dollars because I didn't make a course. I didn't make an ebook. I had nothing paid. And now we have a prep center, we have a group. So there's a few paid things that we do, but I mean, we make chump change compared to what I could have made just being a content creator. Would I have changed it? No, I would have done it differently, because why not do both? I just wish I would have stayed consistent with at least one video per week. So it would have kept the income coming in, and I would have been able to keep helping people with tutorial videos and blogs and teaching, which is what I love to do. And I think that's why the prep center doesn't make a lot of actual profit, but it has such a deep impact with the people that we work with. And this is the hardest part for me as a prep center owner to relate to the team, is the team, their job is physical products. They're not sellers. They have no clue about the online world with Amazon, eBay sellers. So I have to constantly put them in check and remind them, like, you guys are not just working on physical products. You are the reason this client has an extra 10 hours in their week to go hang out at their kids' soccer practice instead of shipping. So that for me is why I would not have not done the prep center. I just wish I would have done it differently. That way I could have balanced a little bit of both.
That makes sense. All right. Where can everyone find you?
Yeah, super easy. If you just look up Side Hustle Network, YouTube. I'm trying to get better at like crossing Instagram stuff to TikTok. But Instagram is kind of the home base. If you look up the Side Hustle Network, I do stories on there. That's the best way we document. And then our YouTube channel as well.
All right, cool. Thanks so much for doing this, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys.
Peace.